It was pouring rain outside when Ivy stood at the entrance of Blackwood Enterprises, shivering in her oversized hoodie and clutching a pink piggy bank to her chest. Her socks were soaked, shoes barely holding together, and the plastic handle of the umbrella she had borrowed from the shelter had snapped in the wind. But she didn't care. She had one mission, one chance, and she wasn't leaving until she saw him. Inside the sleek, glass-walled lobby, heads turned. People stared. Some whispered but Ivy walked straight up to the tall receptionist's desk, cleared her throat, and said firmly, "I'd like to speak to the man in charge." The receptionist blinked, startled. You mean the CEO?" "Yes." Ivy placed the pink piggy bank on the counter. "I'd like to buy a dad. I heard this is where the boss is. I saw him on the billboard." The woman's mouth dropped open. 10 minutes later, Grant Blackwood was stepping out of an elevator, fully prepared to fire someone for interrupting his billion-dollar merger prep, but froze the second he saw her. A little girl, maybe 6 or 7, dripping wet, all alone. She had big brown eyes and stood beside a piggy bank, like it was the most serious business deal of her life. "You're him, right?" she asked, lifting her chin. "The man who runs this whole building." Grant's voice caught. "Yes." "Who are you?" "I'm Ivy." She reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a crumpled drawing, a stick figure with a man, a girl, and a big heart. "I'm looking for a dad. Can I buy one? Can I buy you?" The entire lobby fell silent. One executive dropped his coffee. Grant was speechless. She shook the piggy bank gently. "I have $28.32. I've been saving since I was 4. I don't eat much, and I already know how to fold laundry." He took a breath. "Where's your family?" "I don't have one." Her voice trembled, but she stood her ground. "My mom left me last night, said the shelter would help, but they didn't. They told me to wait outside." His face hardened. "What shelter?" She pointed across the street. Grant glanced out the glass wall. Rain pounded the pavement. Cars splashed through puddles. That shelter had been underfunded. For years he knew because he'd denied their last proposal. "Come with me," he said after a beat. Ivy hesitated. "Does that mean yes?" "It means I'm not letting you stand in the rain." He led her up 40 floors to his private office, an empire of leather and glass overlooking the whole city. Ivy stared in awe but didn't say a word. He poured her hot cocoa. She held the mug with both hands, fingers red from the cold. "Tell me everything," he said gently, taking a seat across from her. And so she did. Her voice was soft, but her story hit like a storm. Her mom had worked low-paying jobs, cleaner, cashier, waitress. Sometimes they slept in motels, sometimes in cars, sometimes with strangers who helped, and sometimes hurt. Then the jobs stopped coming. Her mother started disappearing for hours. Ivy learned to boil eggs and make toast on her own. She learned how to stay quiet when things got scary, how to run when men raised their voices. "She left me last night outside the church," Ivy said, not crying. "She told me, 'Be brave. You deserve more than I can give.' Then she kissed my forehead and walked away." Grant gripped the arm of his chair. "I waited," Ivy said, "but it got dark, and I got scared. So I walked to the shelter. But they said they don't take kids without papers. I don't have any. I don't even have a last name now." Silence. She sipped the cocoa, then looked up. "So I came here. I saw your picture. You looked kind and powerful. I thought, maybe you could be my dad." He couldn't breathe. How had this child made it across town in a storm, alone? He leaned back slowly, brain whirling. This wasn't his problem. He was a businessman, a CEO, a man known for being cold, decisive, untouchable. He'd built his empire from nothing. He didn't have time for fairy tales. "Ivy," he said carefully, "I'm not a father. I never planned to be one." She looked down. "I understand. Can call someone, a safe place, somewhere that can help." Her fingers tightened around the mug. "That's what everyone says. And then they send me away." Grant hesitated. Something in her face, the sadness, the stillness, it reminded him of a time he never spoke about, a person he never mentioned, his little sister, gone since she was 8, taken, lost, never found. His chest tightened. No, he couldn't let this child go back out there. But before he could speak, Ivy stood up. She reached for her piggy bank, fumbled, and it slipped. Crack. The ceramic shattered on the marble floor. Coins scattering everywhere. She gasped but didn't cry. She simply knelt and began picking them up with shaking hands. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I'll clean it up. I didn't mean. Grant knelt beside her. It's okay, he said quietly. Her fingers paused. You won't yell? No. She nodded. Okay. They sat in silence for a moment, collecting coins, and then she asked, is it because I'm broken too? Is that why no one wants me? His throat tightened. No, he said, but she didn't believe him. He could see it in her eyes. She stood up again, wiping her palms on her soaked jeans. Thank you for the cocoa, Mr. CEO, she said quietly. I'll go now. Before he could stop her, she walked to the door. Something deep inside him broke open. He rushed to the security console after she left, heart pounding. He needed to know where she was going, to send someone after her, to help, to fix this. He zoomed in on the footage. Ivy was walking across the street in the rain, but something caught his eye. The necklace around her neck, a cheap, faded heart-shaped locket, the exact same one he had given his little sister, the day she vanished 29 years ago. He zoomed in closer, hand shaking. Inside the locket, just visible through the cracked glass, was a tiny photo of himself. The moment Grant Blackwood saw that heart-shaped locket on the screen, the past slammed into him like a freight train. It wasn't just any necklace, it was the necklace. The same faded pink locket he had given his baby sister, Lena, on her 8th birthday. He had saved for weeks to buy it, back when they were poor, their mother alive, and the world still made sense. Lena had gone missing just 2 weeks later. A neighbor said she was last seen getting into a car with a woman no one could identify. Their mother spiraled after that, and Grant, just 13 then, had spent the rest of his life building walls taller than the buildings he owned. Now no one ever found Lena. No one even knew what happened. But now a little girl named Ivy, barely 7, had just walked into his office, wearing her necklace. Grant didn't waste a second. I need footage from every camera on Madison and 8th. He barked into the phone, pacing like a man possessed. From the last 24 hours, traffic, street cams, shelter entrance, everything. His security team scrambled. Within minutes, he was in a private room with 6 monitors, watching hours of footage. He didn't blink, didn't breathe. Then there, 3:14 a.m. grainy footage showed a shadowy figure, a woman, thin hoodie, pulled low, leading Ivy by the hand to the church steps. She crouched, whispered something to the girl, and pressed something into her hand. Then she ran. Grant rewound, slowed the feed. Just before the woman turned away, the streetlight hit her face, barely visible, but enough. His chest clenched. It wasn't just any woman, it was Carla Benson, a name he hadn't heard in 15 years. She used to be his mother's friend, a troubled woman who floated between shelters and healing centers. She vanished. After Lena's disappearance, Grant stared at the screen. Could it be? Had Carla taken Lena? And more terrifying, could Ivy be Lena's daughter? Meanwhile, Ivy was wandering the wet streets again, piggy bank tucked into her backpack, coat zipped up tight. She didn't cry. She'd learned not to. She passed a bakery where the smell of cinnamon rolls made her stomach cramp. She kept walking. She passed a bus stop where a mother was hugging her little boy. Ivy didn't look. She ended up back at the church steps, curled under the awning, hugged her knees, tried to be small. She pulled out the locket from under her shirt and opened it. Inside was a tiny, water-damaged photo of a boy. She didn't know who he was, but her mom had always told her, "This is your guardian angel. He's strong, he'll find you one day." Ivy had believed her, until now. Back in his penthouse office, Grant didn't sleep. He spent the whole night digging. He pulled up every record he had from his childhood neighborhood, searched for any trace of Carla Benson in the past 20 years. Nothing. She had gone completely off-grid, until last night. At 6 a.m., Grant made the call. "Find her," he told his private investigator. "I don't care what it costs." Then he did something no one had ever seen him do. He cancelled all meetings, put the board on hold, and left the office without security. He found Ivy still asleep at the church. Her knees were tucked to her chest, and a wet piece of cardboard covered her lap. Grant's heart broke in places he didn't know existed. He crouched down slowly. "Ivy." She blinked awake, startled. Then her eyes widened. "Mr. CEO." He gave her a small smile. "I thought we agreed on Grant." She sat up. "What are you doing here?" "I came to make you a deal." She blinked. "You still have your $28. She nodded, confused. "Good," he said, "because I'd like to trade something for it." "What a day," he said. You give me your $28, and I give you 1 full day with me as your pretend dad. Her lips parted. Just 1 day, she asked softly. He nodded. We'll do whatever you want. Pancakes, park, whatever a real dad would do. She looked at him long and hard. Then, slowly, she smiled. I'd like that, she whispered. They had pancakes at a diner 3 blocks away. Ivy ordered chocolate chip ones with whipped cream. Grant, who hadn't eaten carbs since 2009, had plain ones drowned in syrup, just to make her laugh. They went to a bookstore, where she hugged every stuffed animal in the kids section. They fed ducks at the park. He bought her new shoes. She made him promise not to throw away the old ones, because they've been with me through everything. At one point, she slipped her hand into his, and he didn't let go, not even when his phone buzzed for the 12th time, not even when the board threatened to vote him out for missing the merger. This little girl, this stranger, was breaking every rule he lived by. And he didn't care. Later that evening, they sat by the lake as the sun turned the water gold. Ivy, Grant said quietly, can I ask you something? She looked up from where she was drawing in the dirt with a stick. The necklace you wear, who gave it to you? She touched it gently. My mom. She said it was special. Said the boy in the picture was a hero. Did she ever say who he was? Ivy shook her head. No, just that he was brave and kind. Grant's voice cracked. Do you know your mom's full name? Carla, she said. Carla Benson. He swallowed hard. And your dad? Ivy looked down. I don't know. I asked once. She said he was bad and I shouldn't want to know him. Grant stared at her, heart in his throat. Could it be? Could she be Lena's daughter, his niece? He wanted to hug her, but didn't. Not yet. Not until he was sure. Do you have anything else from your mum? She pulled a small folded photo from her bag. It was creased, worn, and faded. It was a picture of a teenage girl with wide brown eyes and dark curls. Lena. No doubt Grant's heart nearly stopped. It was her, and that meant Ivy wasn't just some lost girl. She was family. Just as he was about to tell her everything, his phone rang. It was his pie. Sir, we found Carla, but you're not going to like what we uncovered. Grant stepped away, heart pounding. Go on. She's been using fake names for years, moving town to town. We believe she abducted Lena when she was 8, convinced her your parents didn't want her anymore. Grant froze. What? It's more twisted than we thought. Lena grew up thinking she'd been abandoned. Carla raised her off the grid, and when Lena got pregnant at 16, Carla told her she'd take care of the baby, but Lena went missing a year later. Grant couldn't breathe. Are you saying Carla lied to her? We believe Lena might have died under suspicious circumstances, and Ivy is likely her daughter. Everything spun. He turned to look at Ivy, drawing stick figures in the dirt, completely unaware that her entire life was a lie, that she had been stolen from him, that her mother had been his sister, and may have been murdered by the very woman who dropped Ivy at that church. And suddenly, everything shifted. This wasn't pretend anymore. This was real. This little girl was all he had left of Lena. He walked back, slowly, sat beside her, and said softly, Ivy, what if I told you you weren't alone in the world? She looked up, curious. What do you mean? He smiled sadly. What if I told you that you didn't need to buy a dad, because you already have an uncle who's been looking for you your whole life? She blinked. What? He reached into his wallet, pulled out a folded photo. It was old, faded, him and Lena, arm in arm on her 8th birthday. Ivy stared at it, then at him, then at the locket. Her lips parted. That's the same picture. He nodded. Double quotes. Ivy, your mum, Lena, was my sister. The world stood still. Her eyes filled. You're my uncle. Grant nodded. And finally Ivy burst into tears, but not because she was scared, because for the first time in her life, she felt found. That night, Ivy stayed in Grant Blackwood's penthouse for the first time. She curled up on the corner of the massive L-shaped sofa, wrapped in the softest blanket she'd ever touched. A teddy bear, brand new, rested beside her, though she held it like it had always been hers. Grant didn't sleep. He sat in his home office, staring at an old family album he hadn't touched in 20 years. Page after page of Lena, laughing, dancing, wearing that heart-shaped locket Ivy now carried. Every photo was a wound, and now, somehow, Ivy had brought it all back. But grief wasn't the only thing burning in his chest. It was rage. Carla Benson had taken his sister, lied to her, lied to everyone, and now There was strong reason to believe she'd done something even worse, ended Lena's life, and dumped Ivy when she became a burden. He would not let her get away with it. He had the power, the resources, the truth, and he was ready to use all three. By morning, the investigation had accelerated. His private investigator sent documents, recordings, and even witness statements. One from a former shelter worker who confirmed Carla had once posed as Ivy's grandmother. Another revealed that Lena had tried to escape. A few shelters had helped her briefly, before she mysteriously vanished. It was all fitting together now. The isolation, the hidden addresses, the forged names. Carla had kept Lena prisoner for years, until she finally broke, and now Ivy, the only living proof of it all, was a walking target. That day, Grant took Ivy to his private doctor. She's healthy, the doctor said softly, but malnourished. Minor vitamin deficiency. We'll start supplements immediately. Later, they stopped at a boutique to buy her clothes that actually fit. Ivy giggled when she saw herself in the mirror. Do I look like a real kid now? She asked. You've always looked like one, Grant replied, hiding the lump in his throat. Then came the hardest moment. They visited the cemetery. He hadn't been there since the empty grave was placed. A headstone for Lena Marie Blackwood, with no remains. He brought Ivy to it, watched her eyes widen as she read the name. This was your mum, he said. She loved you. I'm sure of it. Ivy bent down and placed a purple daisy by the stone. She never told me her real name, she whispered. She probably wanted to protect you, Grant said. Ivy looked up. Will you protect me now? Without hesitation, he answered, with everything I have. That night, Grant received news. Sir, said the investigator over the phone. We found Carla. She was in a rural town 3 states away, living under a false name. Working at a thrift store. But there was more. She's planning to leave the country. We found a forged passport and a one-way ticket to Costa Rica. Leaves in 72 hours. Grant's jaw clenched. He stood by the window of his penthouse. City lights flickering beneath him. This woman had stolen his sister, ruined her life, and was about to vanish again, unpunished. Not this time. Prepare the jet, he said coldly. I'm going after her. He left Ivy in the care of his most trusted employee, his head of security, Dana, a former foster child herself, who'd grown up fighting for kids like Ivy. Before leaving, he knelt beside Ivy's bed. She was sleepy, blinking at him in the dark. Where are you going? She murmured. To fix something I should have fixed a long time ago. She frowned. Will you come back? He brushed a curl from her forehead. Always. And for the first time since she'd arrived, Ivy slept with both arms around her, bare, and a small, peaceful smile. The town was quiet, rural, forgotten. Grant arrived at the thrift store in an unmarked car, wearing jeans and a hoodie. No security, no spotlight, just a man with decades of pain behind his eyes. Carla Benson was at the counter, rearranging scarves, older now, thinner, but unmistakable. She didn't recognize him at first, not until he stepped forward. Her smile faded. Grant, you remember me, he said, voice like steel. Her eyes darted to the door. You're not going anywhere, he said flatly. I don't know what you've heard. But he pulled a photograph from his pocket, Lena and Ivy's baby picture. Her face went pale. Don't, she whispered. You lied to her, he hissed. You stole her from her family. Then you kept her prisoner and let her die. No, I loved her. He slammed the counter with both hands. You destroyed her. Customers turned. Carla flinched. I gave her shelter, she said. Your mother wanted to send her away. Lies, he snapped. You brainwashed her. You robbed her of her childhood. And when she tried to escape, you made her disappear. I didn't kill her, Carla said shakily. Where is she then? He demanded. Tears filled her eyes. I don't know, I swear. She ran out one night after we fought. I searched for her. She never came back. Grant stared, trembling. Was she lying again? Ivy deserves to know what you did, he said. She's not yours. She never was. Carla sank into a chair. You're going to take her away from me, aren't you? She was never with you, he said. You're lucky I'm not pressing charges yet. But the second I have enough evidence, you're done. And he walked out the next day. Grant returned to Chicago with something heavier than anger in his chest. Carla had given him one final piece before he left. A journal Lena had kept. The last page was a letter. To the boy in the locket. If you're out there, I hope you know I never stopped loving you. You were my hero then. I wish I'd told you everything. I'm sorry I couldn't escape. I'm sorry Ivy won't know me. But maybe Just maybe, she'll find you, and you'll save her like you couldn't save me. Love, Lena. Grant wept for the first time in 2 decades. He went straight to Ivy. She was on the balcony, watching clouds. When she saw him, her face lit up. She ran into his arms without hesitation. He came back, she cried. He knelt, holding her tight. I'll always come back. She pulled back and whispered, Did you find the bad lady? He nodded. Yes. Is she gone now? She won't hurt you again, ever. Ivy stared at him. Can I ask you something? Anything. She took a deep breath. Can we stop pretending now? Grant blinked. Pretending? I don't want you to be my pretend dad anymore, she said. Can I just be your daughter for real? His heart stopped. He had faced corporate wars, lawsuits, betrayals, but nothing had prepared him for that. He pulled her into his arms again, voice breaking. You already are. 3 months later, the penthouse no longer felt cold. The walls of Blackwood Enterprises' top floor, once polished and empty, now held signs of life. A pink backpack by the door, children's drawings taped beside whiteboards, and a cereal bowl next to a tray of half-finished financial reports. Ivy Blackwood, officially now, had been living with Grant since the day he returned from confronting Carla Benson. She was no longer the timid girl who clutched a piggy bank with frozen fingers. She smiled more. She laughed louder. She went to school now, a real one, with teachers who knew her name and friends who saved her a seat. But most of all, she finally had someone to tuck her in at night. And for Grant, life had changed in ways he never imagined. His board had tried to push back at first. You can't run a company and raise a child, sir. He'd fired 3 of them now. Everyone adjusted. The office cleared space for a child's reading nook. His driver carried extra juice boxes, and every week, a staff member would be chosen to read Ivy a bedtime story if Grant worked late. They called it the Blackwood bedtime shift. But behind all the smiles, a shadow still lingered. Carla Benson had vanished. After Grant's confrontation with her, she fled. Authorities launched a search, but she slipped away before charges were formally filed. They had enough evidence now, the false documents, the shelter records, Lena's journal, but no one knew where she'd gone, and it haunted him, because until justice was done, part of Lena's story would always be unfinished. One evening, as the city lights twinkled below, Grant sat with Ivy on the balcony. She wore one of his old sweatshirts that hung nearly to her knees, sipping hot chocolate, her bare feet swinging. Did you really have a sister who wore my necklace? She asked softly. He nodded. Lena, that means I look like her, right? He smiled. Exactly like her. She turned to him, serious now. Do you miss her every day? He nodded again. Ivy looked at her mug. I think I miss her too, even if I never got to know her. Sometimes, I feel like she's with me when I close my eyes. Grant placed a hand over hers. She is. Then Ivy said something that caught him off guard. Do you think I'm enough to make her proud? He didn't speak for a long time. Then finally, voice thick with emotion, he whispered, You're more than enough. You're the best part of her. She smiled, not a small one this time, but a smile that reached deep. 2 weeks later, the breakthrough came. Grant's investigator called him in the middle of the night. Sir, we found her. Carla Benson had been arrested in New Mexico, under a different name. A routine traffic stop uncovered her fake IDs. The local police, tipped off by the national alert, had connected her to the case. This time, she wasn't getting away. Grant flew out immediately. At the courthouse, Carla sat in chains, head down, face tired and beaten by time. She refused to speak to anyone until she heard that Ivy was still alive and with him. Did you tell her? She asked, looking up slowly. What I did? I told her enough, Grant said, and I told her the truth. Carla scoffed. She doesn't need to know the full truth. She deserves it. Carla's eyes flared. I gave her more love than your family ever gave to Lena. No, he snapped. You gave her a cage. She laughed bitterly. And you think you're the savior now? You think raising a child erases what happened? Grant didn't flinch. No, but she's not afraid anymore. That's more than you ever gave her. She stared at him a long time. Lena loved you, you know. She never stopped. He swallowed. I know, and she never hated me. Not truly. That's the part I'll never understand, Grant said quietly. How she could still love the woman who kept her from her life. She was lonely, Carla whispered, and I made her believe she was unwanted, that no one remembered her. Grant stared at her. But I never forgot. Weeks later, Back in Chicago, the trial began. The courtroom was full. Carla was charged with child abduction, identity fraud, and contributing to the wrongful death of Lena Blackwood. Though Lena's remains had never been found, the evidence, letters, testimony, shelter records, and journal entries painted a clear picture. Grant testified, voice steady but raw. Ivy didn't attend, but every evening, when Grant came home, she would ask just one question: did the truth win today? And every time, he would kneel and say, "It's getting there." On the final day of the trial, the judge announced the verdict: guilty. Carla Benson would serve 25 years without parole. Justice, at last. But that night, as Grant stood alone on the balcony, he realized it still didn't bring Lena back. It never would, but it gave Ivy something her mother never had: safety, a future, a name. Months later, Ivy stood in front of a mirror, wearing a blue dress with white flowers, the one she picked for her adoption ceremony. Her hair was brushed, her necklace polished. "I look like someone brand new," she whispered. Grant knelt behind her, adjusting the collar. "You look like someone who's always been meant to shine." She turned and wrapped her arms around him. "You're really going to be my dad now. Not just in papers," he said. "Forever." The judge smiled warmly as the adoption was finalized. "Ivy Marie Blackwood," the judge declared, "welcome to your family." Tears fell from more than a few eyes, and Ivy, for the first time ever, wrote her full name on the final document with her own hand. That evening, Ivy sat on the rooftop garden Grant had built just for her. Bird feeders, fairy lights, soft benches, and a small statue of a girl with curls, reading a book. "Is that Mummy?" she asked, touching the statue's hand. "Yes," Grant said gently. Ivy placed a flower beside it, and then she sat with Grant, head resting on his arm. "I don't think I need to buy a dad anymore," she said softly. He smiled. "I don't think I was ever for sale. But you were exactly what I needed. And you were exactly what I didn't know I was missing." They watched the stars in silence for a while. Then Ivy whispered, "I hope she can see us." "She can," Grant said. "And she's proud." She looked up. "How do you know?" "Because," he said, wrapping his arm around her shoulder, "the best parts of her are sitting right beside me." And as the city lights glowed beneath them, and the past rested quietly in their hearts, they both knew they weren't broken pieces anymore. They were home.